This recipe is something that I'm very excited about. This is a very, very classic French dish called a beef bourguignon. It's absolutely magnificent, very, very rich. The meat is like butter at the end of it. So the good thing about this dish is you can actually use the cheapest cut of beef possible. So what we're going to start with is we have our pot here. Now make sure what you use is an oven-safe pot, okay? That is something very important because after we do all of the sauteing with everything in the pot, we're going to put it in the oven for quite a few hours. So take your pot, put a little bit of olive oil into it, a couple of tablespoons, and turn on your heat, about medium heat. Okay, now what do we have here? This is something amazing. This is one of my favorite things to use. This is smoked goose. In the classic French recipe for beef bourguignon, they use bacon. Crispy bacon gives a lovely smoky, meaty taste to the food. Slice up your smoked goose in nice strips. Take a little bit, put it inside. See, if you can hear the sizzle, then you're in business. Put the smoked goose in it. Also, we're going to be frying the beef in this later, so some of the fats that come out of the smoked goose will add another level of flavour to the dish, which is magnificent. And you want to cook it until it's nice and crispy. When it's nice and crispy, not overly crunchy, but really quite good. I'm actually going to take it out with a slotted spoon because I want to keep these fats in the bottom of the pan for when I put the beef in. So I've cut up the meat beautifully. Now what we want to do is we want to brown the meat. Again, in the same pan, in the same pot that we just browned the smoked goose in. So here we go. Just put this in. Depending on how much you make, obviously it could take you quite a while if you have a lot of meat here. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Trust me, the end result is awesome. The meat immediately starts to brown. It doesn't really need to be in for so long. Just need to make sure that everything gets turned over, gets browned on all sides. Okay. First lot is done. And then we'll move on with doing the rest of it. So far we browned all of the meat. So now to the pot which has all the meat fats in it, I'm going to add one onion that I've sliced up and about 3 carrots that I've sliced up. You don't actually need this much vegetables, but I actually love it at the end to have some extra vegetables. You can use a smaller onion and you can use 1 carrot if you prefer, but it all adds to the flavour. I'm just going to put this in here, mix it around, do a little bit of a browning of the vegetables as well for a few minutes. The oven at the moment is heating up. It's on 215 degrees Celsius, and you'll see why I put it on such a high heat very, very soon. I'm going to take all of our browned meat and smoked goose that we've also fried up. I'm going to add it all together. Now, I'm going to add a generous amount of salt. I'm going to add a generous amount of pepper. And a couple of tablespoons of flour. Now you might ask, why is it that I'm doing this? Now what happens is once I mix all of this together, we're going to put it in that high oven, and then as the sauce that we're going to be making later cooks with the meat in the oven over time, it gradually forms a roux. It gradually forms, makes it slightly thicker. Now, if you're gluten-free and you don't want to use this, then you don't have to use flour. You can use corn flour, but I would use less of corn flour if you wanted. What we're going to do is we're going to take this uncovered and we're going to put it in for about 4 minutes on this heat. And
then in about 4 minutes we're going to take it out, we're going to stir it again, and then put it back for 4 minutes to help the flour bake into it, to act as like a little crust on the meat. I'm now going to start preparing, whilst this is in the oven, for the sauce that we're going to be making, that we're going to be baking the beef with it. So I've got my stock here that I've just boiled up. We'll have some tomato paste, some crushed garlic, some thyme, and bay leaf. And the most important part of the whole process is the wine. Let's just take the beef out for a second. It's been baking inside with the flour. We'll just stir it around a little bit so that all of the flour gets to bake over everything. Make a nice little crust. Nice, thick and delicious. Put it back in for another 4 minutes. Okay, now wine. For something like this, where you really want all of the tannins and all of those like slightly bitter tastes in the wine, make it a little bit rich, make you be able to actually taste a little bit of the wine, less creamy as it were. So you want a really young wine, that's the best kind of thing. A young Cabernet is perfect. But if you want to get a nice Chianti, that would be magnificent with this. So I've reduced the heat of the oven to 160 degrees Celsius, about 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is the temperature that we're going to cook the meat in for about 3 to 4 hours once it's done. So now I need to prepare the sauce. So first off, you need to have about 3 glasses of wine in it. Average bottle of wine has about 4 or 5 glasses of wine in it, so maybe we'll have a little bit extra. Spin it around. Pour some stock in to cover all of the meat. Let's just put it all in, why not? What I'm going to do is add a tablespoon of tomato paste. I'm going to take the garlic and crush the garlic into the pot. French love garlic. I like it as well. You can add a little bit less if you don't like it so much. A couple of bay leaves. Crush those into it. And just put some fresh thyme in it. Bring your pot to a simmer. Obviously, stir it around, get all the flavours going throughout the whole thing. Bring the pot to the simmer, then we cover it and put it in the oven. Leave it for 3 to 4 hours until the meat is very easily pierced with a fork. And trust me, it's going to taste absolutely exquisite when we get to that point. Now we're going to continue with the next stage of the beef bourguignon process. The beef's been in the oven for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So now what I want to do is make the other elements. Now, I'm going to put some margarine in instead of butter, and I'm going to put some olive oil in. I'm going to put these in and cook them to try and brown the outside of them, add some flavour into the shallots, but I don't want to break the skins because I want to try and keep them as whole as possible. You can see that we're just going to stir them around in there, brown them. Now, whilst we're doing that, we'll prepare the mushrooms. I've already cut up some of the mushrooms. What I'm going to do is I want to mince the shallots. The mushrooms, you see they're starting to go brown, the shallots. So what we're going to do is I have a bouquet garni here, which is wrapped up in some cheesecloth so that the twigs don't get in the dish. I've got some thyme, some parsley and some bay leaf. I'm going to put that in over here. And where is it? And I've got some beef stock that I'm going to pour in on top. A little bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. Simple, beautiful, delicious. I'm going to take half of these minced shallots that we've got here and put it in.
Stir it around, let them cook a little bit, add some flavour to the dish. Put them in with some salt, some pepper. Mix it around, make sure everything's covered in the oil, margarine mix, and they're all covered in the shallots, all starting to get it. You don't have to cook the mushrooms overly. I don't like completely soggy mushrooms. I want to try and maintain the fresh, earthy taste of the mushrooms when we eventually put it into the beef. Okay, so we're going to leave this for probably about half an hour. I might shake it about a couple of times in order to make sure that they're cooked all the way around. You want them to be beautiful and soft and soak up all of the beef stock and all of the flavour from the herbs. And then the mushrooms, not going to necessarily cook for that long. Okay, welcome back to the nearly final step of our phenomenastic beef bourguignon. Okay, it has been in the oven for just over 3 hours. I want to now take it out and see whether the meat is soft enough for us to be able to do the finishing touches. Are we ready? Dum, da, dum. Wow. So just now I poured out all of the juices from inside into here, sieved it out. So what we have inside this pot now is a really beautiful, pure gravy. I'm going to take the mushrooms, I'm going to pour the mushrooms in. Those mushrooms that we sauteed earlier with the shallots. And now, I'm with the minced shallot. Now I'm going to open this and you can see inside here. And I'm going to take out our bouquet garni using a slotted spoon for the stock that hasn't yet absorbed. I'm going to pour that in, because the onions now have this beautiful, magnificent flavour to them. I'm going to mix all of this together so we have all these beautiful, different flavours in this dish. Try and keep the onions whole. Okay, so now it's bubbling away, and you can see that the fat has risen, some of the fats have risen to the surface. So now it's boiling. I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. And one way of getting the fat off is that you make like a whirlpool in it. So you stir it one way, and you see all the fat is going out to the edges. You see that? All the fat is going out to the edges. So you turn it, so you make a little thing, and then whilst it's spinning, you just run your spoon in the opposite direction, and you can get off a nice amount of the fat. I'm going to simmer this slightly higher in order that the sauce reduces down. So I'm guessing it will probably have to reduce by about half. So we'll bring it to a boil, reduce it down. Okay, so if you want to have a look, the sauce now is a lot thicker. So one way of testing it is you want to see whether it could coat the back of a spoon. So here we go. I'm going to take the sauce, I'm going to pour it on top. Mix it around, again really carefully, because you don't want to destroy those beautiful, beautiful onions. So soft, so special. Spoon some into your dish. Sprinkle with a little bit of your parsley. And there you have a cracker. You have an absolute classic beef bourguignon. Refaim. That's something else. Something else.